Hello and welcome to another one of my thoughts videos. In this one I'm going to continue on with the population thing, just to amplify it a little bit, to give you a little bit of the background to the scam and the way basically that I see that it started. Way back in the Second World War, that great business deal there, after the destruction of Europe and Japan and all those sorts of things, there was the great big rebuild. And as part of that rebuild, there was a lot of rebuilding of the cities that were existing then. There was this guy called John Calhoun in 1947 in the United States who decided to do a little bit of experiments because there was a thinking at the time that of what would happen if we urbanized too much or whatever, or what were the social implications and things of urbanization and the rebuild of the cities. And so he started to do some experiments in his lab. He got a yard and filled it with a couple of rats. He fenced off a piece and he gave them everything they wanted. He noticed that they multiplied extremely rapidly and he thought the place was going to be totally overrun with them. But he got up to, the experiment shows the size and shape and everything, and he got to about 200 or so rats, and the population started to stabilize and then decrease in accordance with the resources that the rats had. This got him thinking a little bit more, and he designed some other experiments, something like, was it 20 or 40 or something, rather, a whole heap of experiments between 1947 and 1954 when he published his findings. He basically tried different configurations of then taking the rats inside and not in an exterior one, and then basically established a lab. He got some finances to be able to finance it and these experiments, and then he put a couple of rats in, or was it 2 pairs of rats just to give some genetic diversity there, into an enclosure, and he gave them everything that they would need, a rat utopia. He gave them food, water, lodgings, everything that they could ever want. And as the population grew extremely rapidly, he also made sure that they had plenty of food, water and lodgings. But he found that after a certain level, social problems started to develop within the rat colony, and all sorts of dynamics start to happen, to the point that eventually the colony exterminated itself. The experiment was a surprise to him, so he repeated it, and then he repeated it again, and then he tried all sorts of configurations of high-rise buildings, spread out buildings, and all sorts of different configurations, and the results were always the same. There was rapid growth to start with, and then as things got larger in the population, even though they had everything they needed, the social problems started. First, the females started to get aggressive. And there were different sections of society. The fights started to break out. There were machos that had harems, that had several females that he had to look after and protect, and they became very aggressive. The males that lost out on those females became bachelors, and they became plump and fat and did nothing. And the other females that got more and more aggressive reproduced less and less, and eventually started killing their own babies as well. Till eventually the colonies always self-exterminated. I'm not sure to what final degree he went, but to the colonies, whether they actually got down to 0, but the colonies got down to almost nothing in every single case. Now, after publishing these findings, I think it was after, he went and visited the Pope. And when you get a visit with the Pope, you know something maybe a little skew there, because that's more or less from there on that the urbanization of the world started to happen. As they rebuilt the cities, there was that push to encourage people into the cities more and more. And now we have over an 80 to 90% city ratio. There are a lot of countries around the world which are still rural, particularly the poorer ones tend to be more rural, and the more affluent ones tend to be more urban. For example, Japan is something like 95% urban. And as I've said in the last video, and what the findings of John Calhoun was, if you want to investigate him, Calhoun, it's C-A-L-H-O-U-N, 1947, he started his experiments, is that when you crowd people together, they self-exterminate. Because of all those things. You get the gay population, you get the psychos that go around attacking each other, there are the sex maniacs, that the rats that would have sex with any female they could get their hands on, even at the peril of being killed by the macho harem guy that would protect his harem. He would beat them up, rip their ears off, bite their tails off and all that sort of thing. But those sex maniacs continued to get into that. There were the others that opted out of society and became the fat, plump rats that just said, no stress, no fights, I got everything I need, lived life comfortably and died without procreating. And the females got very aggressive to the point of killing their own babies. And we can see our society mimicking exactly that. So the part of the global extermination of us, the medical scam that we have been experiencing, is only one of the things that they're doing to hasten the extermination of us. Urbanization has been going since way back in the 1940s, right through 1954 and onwards, to encourage us to auto-exterminate. So that one is well on the way. So I thought you might be interested in that. The rat experiments that indicate and prove, if you like, on a scientific level, how the powers that be, one of their techniques, and a major one, is that of population eradication by putting us into cities. I think the States is designated to have only 5 major urbanizations in the whole of the entire country, which is all aimed at exterminating. And look all around the world, it's the same. So there we are, the rat experiment, part of the matrix.